welcome to this yin sequence focused on the power of words. For today, I'm going to suggest that you have some type of props nearby. I'll be demoing with a couple of blocks. However, you're welcome to use any towels, any blankets, any pillows, whatever you have at home. Just kind of gather it towards your mat so that you can feel nice and supported if you need it. Know that you're always welcome to do it without props, and I'll actually, for the most part, demo without props. I'll just show you the options. And we will meet together on our backs. You can choose whether you'd rather have the legs long, all the way down on the floor. You can bring the soles of feet in together, drop the knees wide, coming into a butterfly variation. Or you can join me in constructive rest with the soles of the feet on the ground, the knees dropping in together. Let the hands rest wherever feels comfortable. For me, I'm placing them on my hips, but you're welcome to let the palms face up alongside you. Take one hand to belly, one hand to heart. Melt in. See if you can walk the shoulder blades closer together towards midline, the spine. Find a subtle tuck of the chin. Let the head pull away from the sit bones. And drop into your mat, surrendering to its support. Noticing how the breath naturally moves your body. Gentle rise and fall. Today's class is inspired by words from Baron Baptiste. From his book, Perfectly Imperfect. You'll notice that what comes up in the moment of giving up is a bunch of words. Just words. You give words their power. You act and don't act based on all the conversations in your head. You empower those conversations and then act accordingly. But consider that thoughts actually don't have to be directly connected to action. You have your thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. And they definitely don't have to run the show. You can take conscious action in the face of any thought or inner conversation if you are alert and aware that it's there. You have all the power. You get to decide what you do in the moment of wanting to give up. Let those words soak in. As we explore this intention of observing, reflecting, and choosing our words through this practice. Deepening the breath. Take an inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh it out. Another clearing breath. Exhale. An option to breathe in and out through the nose. You notice where your mind is now, in this very moment. And reminding you before we move that my words in themselves are guides, and that you are the owner of your practice. So at any point, you can modify and adjust as needed to find your depth. If the legs are long, draw the soles of the feet to the floor. If they're in butterfly, use your hands to help support the knees up. We'll roll over to one side and then onto our bellies. Stack the right hand underneath your forehead, left hand over top, and turn the right cheek onto your hand. Toes untucked, lengthen long through the right leg, press down through the back of the big toe mound. The left knee will move in a figure 4 shape up towards the left elbow, coming into a half frog. If it feels like too much in the neck, the forehead can stay at center. And if we're coming into the twist of the neck, just make sure the back of the neck stays really long. And some people like to have props underneath the left knee. If you need more depth, the knee keeps pressing out and closer up towards the elbow. If you're looking for ease, then you draw that knee further down. And you explore an edge where you feel a challenge, you feel slight discomfort in the body, sensation through most likely the left inner thigh, but you are still capable of breathing through it. It's not forceful, and you're not trying to perform or to meet an expectation. You're allowing yourself to arrive in your body by feeling, by creating a subtle stress, and then noticing how the mind reacts. Notice what words arise. Noticing how it feels to have the front body now grounded to the floor and the back body receptive and open to the space above you. And the forehead returns to center. Inhale, send the top of the head away from the right big toe. Exhale, release down, straighten through the left leg. Let it meet in line with the right. Sway the hips from side to side, neutralizing through the pelvis. Return to center. Switch the stack of the hands. Left cheek releases down onto the right hand. And then the right knee moves up. Press down through the back of the left big toe mound. And right away, noticing where the thoughts wander. Notice if the words, the patterns of your thoughts are similar as they were on the opposite side, or if new thoughts are stirring. As we witness and observe, we try not to judge. We try not to latch on to anything. And it's quite possible that you have multiple voices speaking to you at once. Can you smile at them, acknowledge them, then
try to sweep them aside and come back to the attention to your breath. Notice what happens to your mind in the moments of silence. Whether the thoughts settle or more voices come into the space. There's no right or wrong, there simply is whatever is happening. And so we reflect, we note the patterns, and we continue with our breath. We feel through the sensations of our body. Forehead returns to center. Inhale, lengthening. Exhale, releasing the right leg. Finding rocks through the hips. Letting go of whatever came up, trying not to attach, but to explore the new movement. The palms come underneath the shoulders. Toes stay untucked as you press your way back, coming all the way back into child's pose. So sit bones rest back towards the heels. If that feels really far away, you can always add a block underneath the seat, or you can add something underneath your forehead, your forearms, your chest. You can choose whether you'd rather have the toes together and the knees really wide, or the knees in line with the hips, and the heels in line with the knees. Arms can reach overhead or rest alongside you, palms face up. If they're overhead, you can activate through the hands, creating a suction cup by pressing through the outer edges of the hands and the fingertips and lifting up through the middles of the palms. And curl the armpits towards the ears. And melt the belly down on the exhale. If your mind is racing, you can use your belly as an anchor to your breath, feeling it rise and fall on your thighs.
Continuing to sweep away to clear out any words that are not serving you in this moment. Any attachments to the past, any thoughts about the future. Letting go and coming into this state of presence, this state of being, sitting, holding through your press through the shins, press through the hands. Sweep yourself forward into a tabletop position. Tuck in through the toes. Stack the wrists underneath the shoulders, the knees underneath the hips. And then let yourself move intuitively to release through any holding. So maybe the hips sway from side to side. Maybe you find a few cat-cows. And notice where your mind goes when suddenly you're choosing. You're not being told what to do. This is a reminder, in case you are still clinging on to every word I say, that your body can feel into what it likes. That you can take the reins and adjust, modify, and move to deepen into your practice. We'll meet together in neutral. Really subtly hug the hip bones together as though you were guarding your belly from getting a soccer ball kicked into it. So slight engagement of the core, about 10% effort. Slight bend of the elbows. Keep that suction cup of the hands. And then lean over to the right so that you can lift up through the left knee, the left foot, and plant it all the way in line with the left shoulder. Outside of the hands, all the way over to the left edge of your mat. And then tent up onto your fingertips. If this feels like a lot for you, you can use your blocks underneath the hands. If you feel like you want more, you can wiggle your right knee further out to the right. Maybe slightly further back. And then we open up through the chest. So draw the collarbones in opposite directions. Send the sternum, the middle of the chest, forward and up. We keep a humble tuck of the chin. We lengthen top of head away from the sit bones. Soften any grip through the left toes. And send the left knee out towards the left pinky toe. This is option 1. Option 2, we pivot our left foot out towards the left. And the angle can feel different in everyone's body. Mine's about 45 degrees. Just finding a little more depth through that left thigh. Reminding yourself that you can use something underneath the hands to support you. You can also use a blanket or towel underneath the right knee if it feels quite hard, the surface underneath you. And then option 3, we curl up and onto the outer edge of our left foot. But keep sending the right hip up and back. And keep spreading the collarbones. That heart center stays really open.
So we're moving into an edge, into a depth, maybe into some discomfort, but we're not meeting it with resistance. We're softening into it with our breath, and we're intentionally modifying so that we can steady that breath. And if you want to delve further, the forearms can come down onto blocks, or the forearms can release all the way down onto the floor. Make sure that it feels good in your body. Ask yourself why. And check in with the words. Our hips store a lot, both physically and emotionally. So see what arises here. We hold for time, enabling the muscles to settle. And it's quite common for our tissues to store, not just physical holding, but emotional holding, as I mentioned. So see whether any memories or any words or any sensations come to light. If you're all the way down on the forearms, work back up onto the hands. Keep sending the chest forward. Draw the big toe mound back down onto the floor if you were leaning out to the left. Point the toes forward. Take a full breath in. Long breath out. And heel toe your left foot so that your knee stacks underneath the shoulder. Bringing it closer in line with the right. And then walk that heel further forward. And find your blocks or your pillows or whatever you're using. Water bottles are also great. And start to straighten through the left leg. And I like to play with my right hip staying stacked over top of my right knee. But if something else feels better in your body, go for it. Feel the inner thighs squeeze towards one another. And if you don't have props, fingertips are fine. If you have props, see if you can lengthen more through the spine. And swivel the left sit bone in towards the right thigh. Option to lift up the left toes. You may need to adjust your heels slightly. And then option to fold into it. We're thinking more about hinging through the hips rather than rounding and curling through the spine. Keeping those shoulder blades pressing towards one another and those collarbones spreading away. Notice what you feel. And notice what words associate with this pose. And back through the front knee. Set your props aside. Heel toe, that left foot out, draw the left hand in. Step up onto right toes if you have them untucked. We sweep the left leg all the way back, returning into our tabletop. And then we play. Moving intuitively. Intentional practice of letting go of whatever came up on that side. Kind of like when you're driving a car and someone ahead of you really frustrates you. Maybe they are stopped at a green light, not moving. And you feel that tension build up in your body, but you know what? 10 seconds later, it's all good. They move. And you continue on your merry way. We choose our reaction. We don't have control over their decision, but we have control over our response. So do we let that bother us for another 5, 10 minutes, maybe even the full day? Or do we shake that off, take a breath, acknowledge it, let it go, and move forward? Back to neutral. And lean over to the left. Step the right foot all the way out to the right. So it's in line, the knee is in line with the shoulder. And start with the foot pointing straight forward. If it feels good, you can walk that left knee slightly back and out to the left. You may want those props to support you up. And if you have blocks, there are 3 heights, so play with them. And if you're using blankets or you're using pillows, very few things have only 1 height, and so go exploring if it doesn't feel good. Open up through the heart, soften through the throat. Directing that right knee out towards the right pinky toe. Lifting up through the front of the left hip. Option to turn the right toes out towards the right. Maintaining a subtle engagement of the core so that we're not slaying the belly forward. We're not dumping it down into the floor. Feel that right sit bone squeeze in towards the left thigh. That can help with the core engagement. Maybe we lean onto the outer edge of the right foot. But check in. Make sure you're not moving past your edge and into pain. Let that breath be smooth. Feel into your sensations and tune into your thoughts without resistance. If you explored on the other side, it feels okay on this side, onto your forearms. Just make sure the forearms are quite wide. I have mine shoulder width apart, quite similar to Sphinx pose, so the wrists in line with the elbows. And then we press down through the forearms to rise up through the shoulders and keep spreading those collarbones away. Maybe you don't use props and you drop all the way down onto your mat. Is there anywhere that is gripping, that is not serving you can let go of by intentional awareness? If you're low, press up through the hands. Look up onto your fingertips. Lengthen the head away from the back knee. Drop down through right big toe mound. And point the right toes straight forward. Heel toe the right foot so that the knee comes underneath the right armpit. And heel may walk slightly forward to give you more depth as we move into our half splits, half hanuman. Props can support you as you straighten through that right leg. And I like to start high and then drop in. I find it helps my hips level out, helps me ease into that right set of hamstrings. Maybe the toes point up. And if the toes point up, you'll probably want to sneak that heel slightly forward. As you come into the fold, if that's where you're going, think about peeling that right hip back, left hip forward, and then hinging through the core. Staying long through the top of the head. Breathing through the thoughts that are telling me no. And not the thoughts that are telling me, no, this is painful, stop, but the thoughts that are saying, oh, I don't like this. This is not comfortable. Get me out of here. Because we use our mat to play into discomfort. It's a place to deepen awareness of the self so that we can show up better off of the mat. And almost on a daily basis, you will find something that makes you feel uncomfortable outside of your mat. So how can you use the tools of this practice? Use your breath, use the kindness in observing your thoughts before reacting and choosing which ones to cling on to. Bend into that right knee. Adjust the legs as needed. Walk the right foot out, hands come to the inside. Plant through the palms. Sweep the leg back. And maybe move, maybe press back into child's. Giving yourself this time to let go. We'll all meet back in tabletop. And tuck through the toes. Walk your fingertips towards your knees. Then keep using your fingers to support you as you come up into a squat. So lots of options here. Option 1, we come up into a half squat. So our knees are bent, our legs are really wide, toes can point out wherever feels comfortable, and then our forearms rest on our thighs so that we take off a little bit of the load. Try to keep a flat back as best you can. That is one option. Option 2, we find all of the props to support underneath us as we come into a seat. So you can take that half squat with supports underneath you, or you can move a little bit lower. I'm going to sit right here. Let's find whichever variation feels best for you. And offering for the hands is to draw them into Anjali Mudra, to prayer at the heart center. Settle space hollow between the hands so that energy can flow as you connect right side to left side. And find the angle that feels best in your legs. Knees draw in line with the toes. You can press the backs of the upper arms into the thighs, and lift up through the chest. You can also release the hands down, let the head go. That feels better. Maybe the eyes close. Maybe you center your attention to the third eye, that space between the eyebrows. Maintaining length through the back of the neck by keeping that chin gently tucked. And we notice where our thoughts go as we ease into this squat. Maybe you lift up all 10 toes so that you can activate through the arches of the feet, pressing through big toe mound, pinky toe mound, and heels. And toes can soften back down. No gripping or clenching. You root the seat towards the floor, lift up through the top of the head. Staying centered through your breath. If words distract you, maybe repeating to yourself. Inhale, exhale. If they're not already, the fingertips release down to the floor. And we lift up through the seat, Straightening our legs, moving into a forward fold. Toes point straight forward. You can choose how wide or how close you'd like your feet to be. Mine are a little bit wider than hip width apart. And an offering of a supported forward fold. Let your head rest down on blocks, bottles, chairs, couches, whatever you have handy. Bend the knees as much as you need to send more weight into the toes and lift up through the seat. You'll find if you have something supported underneath the head that quite quickly you can delve deeper. Adjust your settings. Hands can clasp onto the elbows. We can release on the floor. We can come behind the calves, clasp onto the ankles. Let yourself melt down, inviting gravity to draw your upper body closer towards the front line of your legs. The supports can be helpful because they can reduce that sensation of feeling like you're going to take a somersault forward, but let you play with that depth of moving your weight into your toes, of continuously lifting up the sit bones towards the sky, melting your belly and chest down. And hanging out upside down can feel uncomfortable, so notice where your mind is. Notice what thoughts, what words are stirring. Can you use your breath to invite calmness? My yin teacher, Bernie, always liked to say that the best way to release a forward fold is to move into a squat. So we'll heel toe our feet wide and drop into whichever variation is calling you. I'm choosing to move into a propless variation, but you can always support yourself with your blocks or with your pillows, or come up into that half squat. You may notice the heat, the tapas, that inner energy, fire, starting to build through the legs. When we go back to that initial quote of, we have the power to choose how to act when we face the option of giving up. Those aren't the exact words, but that's along the line. And so notice if you're trying to ease out in fear of facing the depth, or whether you're modifying to accommodate for pain. Instead of giving up, can you adjust? Can you set aside the thoughts that are telling you no, And feel into your body and feel into your breath. And if your breath is still smooth, can you stay? When we face challenges in our lives, there is always an option. We can flee. We can fight. We can avoid or confront. And fighting and confrontation do not have to be negative. They can be the act of standing up for ourselves. The act of tuning in to hold ourselves with a little more compassion. And sometimes the fighting is the simple act of fighting off those negative thoughts that are telling us that we are not good enough, that are shaming us for what we have done, that are making us feel guilty, that are not allowing us to fully show up in the moment. We use our breath to center. We use our breath to be here, to find the strength. And then my teacher Bernie always said that the best way to counteract squat is to move into a forward fold. And you can choose whether to add the supports or fully release. Maybe taking the feet a little bit wider, bending the knees a lot. Option 2, clasp onto the elbows as the forearms rest behind the knees. Wherever you are, let the head go. Let go of any tension through the jaw. Decompress through the outer edges of the feet. Lean that weight towards the toes. Steady through the breath. Does your mind feel more comfortable when confronting something that you faced before? Or does it fall into an anxious pattern of anticipation? Feel into your strength. The mind is telling you you can't. Find that voice that tells you you can. It's often at that edge of giving up that we find the biggest shift, the greatest releases. That we can then step off of our mat with a new perspective. Release the hands to the floor. Inhale, straighten the legs, find a halfway lift. Hands to shins, flat back. Exhale, sigh it out, bend through the knees. Come really wide with the feet, lower into a squat just so that we can sit ourselves onto the floor. Release the hands behind you. And take the soles of the feet to the ground. Sneak your sit bones up towards your heels, and then settle your way onto your back. And press down through the shoulder blades. Walk them towards the midline. And then take your low back and root it down to the floor. And so you're scooping the pelvis slightly. There's a little bit of a hollow underneath the back, but the pelvis is nice and neutral. Then left knee draws in towards the chest. Check the interlacing of your fingers. We'll all take the right fingers in front of the left. Steady the breath as you move the left knee out towards the left armpit. Stay anchored through the right shoulder. Maybe you release that right hand down alongside you, palm facing up, or the right hand can drop onto the right hip so that you stay plugged down through the back of the right hip. Option one, hang out here. We move into a half happy baby, weaving the left arm inside of the left thigh, clasping onto the outer edge of the left foot, and levering the left heel over top of the left knee. The foot is flat as though it were a platter. The knee draws down towards the floor. So you keep pressing the back of the right hip down to the floor, and don't let that right knee sway out to the side. Try keeping it in a nice parallel or perpendicular position to the mat. Soften the throat, soften the face. Feel into any shakes. Feel into the ease. The hand can always clasp onto the hamstrings or the shins if the foot feels too far away. Release the foot. Knee comes back into center. Take the hands to the backs of the thighs, interlace right fingers in front of left as you kick through the left heel, straightening through the leg, bending the knees as much as you need to. And send the left hip away from the left shoulder. Then point the toes, flex the toes towards the knees. Play here. Stay steady in the breath. It feel good to circle through the ankles. If it feels like too much to use the hands, you can always use a towel or blanket to wrap around the foot and support you. Then we pause in stillness, knowing you can continue to move if that feels better for you. If you'd like to go deeper, hand can come up onto the calves. Just make sure it's serving a purpose. Maybe that right leg comes long. If so, engage through the right heel, send the right heel away from the right hip. And keep breathing through the left leg.
If they are not painful, these wiggles and wobbles can offer release. Teaching your body to let go. Teaching yourself to surrender when you feel supported. When you have set yourself up in your mind to receive. And feel your back body strong against the mat. Bend through the left knee. Release the hands. Let the foot release down to the floor. And right knee comes in towards the chest. Fingers interlace around the shins. Left fingers in front of the right. Right knee moves towards the armpit. Plug down through the left shoulder blade. Slacken the grip of the hands. Maybe the left hand releases or comes onto the left hip. Perhaps you move into a happy baby. Weaving that right arm to the inside of the thigh and then the outside of the hand, the outside of the hamstring or the shin. That left knee stays in line with the hip. Throat stays open. Another source of power is how you share your words audibly. When we constrict it, we also constrict our ability to speak up, speak out. And that is a great place to practice the silence. But the silence with a sense of openness. So we're not silencing ourselves in fear, not constricting that throat. We're keeping it open so that we can choose when our words are needed. And then through the right knee, with the hands clasped back of the thigh. And the heel kicks up towards the sky. Press the thigh in towards the hands in towards the thigh. Draw the right hip away from the right shoulder. Stay stable and sturdy through the left. Moving through the feet, pointing and flexing the toes. Remembering you can bend that knee as much as you need to. You can adjust the placement of the hands. You can use a strap or a towel to support you instead. Eventually, finding stillness. Maybe the hands crawl up to the calves. You want a little more depth, or the left leg can straighten. Engage through the heel, point the left toes towards the knee, send the heel away from the hip. Meeting your edge without resistance. Continuing to breathe through it. Clearing out any perceptions, any thoughts that are pulling you out of this moment. And centering yourself on the inhales and the exhales. Bend through the right knee. Draw the sole of the foot down, release the hands. If the left leg is long, let it join in. And hug both knees in towards the chest. And draw the knees out to the sides. And find that chin tuck round through the base of the head. And see if you can scoop that tailbone so that the whole low back presses down into the floor. Maintain the length of the spine. Maybe you play with happy baby. Both hands into the inside, clasp onto the outsides of the feet. Draw the soles of the feet up to sky. Hands can also clasp onto the shins or onto your hamstrings, or the legs stay down. Might feel good to rock from side to side, feeling the variations through the hips and through the low back. And since this is called Happy Baby, see if you can put a smile on your face. Tune into the words. It's kind of like in Scrabble, where you have that bag of letters. There's so many letters, but you only have 7 letters to play with at a time. And so we want to be really intentional with the 7 letters we choose to play with. And in that game, it's randomized, but in our brain, it's not. Yes, the thoughts are random, but we can choose which ones to focus in on. The others we can sweep back into that bag, set aside for later on. And release the clasp. Let the legs go long. Know that you're practicing at home, so if anything else is calling you, take those movements in your body. We'll all meet together in Shavasana. And a full inhale. Exhale, dropping into your mat. Use this state of being, this position of rest, to let go of any need to control whatsoever. Let go of the breath, let go of tension in the muscles, activation. Letting our thoughts Settle, but not resisting if they continue to wander. An active state of inaction. So that our body has time to absorb and distill everything that has come up in this practice up until now. It can shift the tensions, shift the patterns. Nourish the body with newness. Because reality is that each time you show up on the mat, you leave your mat a little bit different. You'll notice that what comes up in the moment of giving up is a bunch of words. Just words. You give words their power. You act and don't act based on all the conversations in your head. You empower those conversations and then act accordingly. But consider that thoughts actually don't have to be directly connected to action. You have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts, and they definitely don't have to run the show. You can take any conscious action in the face of any thought or inner conversation if you are alert and aware that it's there. You have all the power. You get to decide what you do in the moment of wanting to give up. Notice where your thoughts are right here, right? Shift your attention back to the breath. Noticing its movement in and out through the nostrils. Rise and fall, the belly, the chest, extension of the ribs, reawakening the physical body by pulling through fingers and toes, scrunching through the nose, moving through the cheeks, the forehead, taking through the jaw, the tongue. Circling through the wrists and ankles, adding in the elbows or knees, the hips, the shoulders. Perhaps
reaching the arms long overhead, pointing the toes, finding a full inhale, sipping the air in, holding at the top, sip in a little more, hold a little longer, exhale, draw it out. The knees move in towards the chest. If you'd like to stay on the floor, the soles of feet can rest on the ground, dropping the knees in. Or moving with me. Roll onto one side, fetal position. Take a breath here. Use top hand to support you up to a seat. Whatever that looks like for you. I'll be coming onto my knees. Settle yourself in. Let the shoulders stack over the hips, the ears back over the shoulders. Draw the low ribs and the chin down as you lengthen through the top of the head. Hands can rest on the thighs alongside you. You can take right hand to heart, left hand over top. And close the eyes. Feel the vibrations underneath your hands, if the hands are at the chest. You are not your thoughts. Easy to say, harder to manage. But we use this mat, we use this practice as a means to tap in. We are also not who we were yesterday, not who we were 5 minutes from now. We have this ever-changing capacity to shift if we set our intentions towards that. This mat is a means to show up for ourselves with more compassion and kindness, surrender, so that we can move off of our mat into our communities with an ability to be more receptive, compassionate, loving to those around us. So if you're here for the physical practice, that is great. But there is so much more to gain. With an inhale, thank you for showing up. Thank yourself for sitting with your words, for observing with a sense of curiosity. Exhale to set an intention to carry this practice off of your mat. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I see you, I hear you, notice you. These videos are made through love and hard work. Your contributions allow me to keep sharing new content with you. If you're able to give back financially, please click the Make a Donation button on the homepage of this channel. You're also welcome to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest video offerings. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Don't be Kona!